Some men aren't looking for anything logical, like money. They can't be bought, bullied, reasoned, or negotiated with. Some men just want to watch the world burn.
Kind, honest, and humble on the outside, however calculating, manipulative, and ruthless on the inside. A character who is several steps ahead of his competition at all times. Someone who'd rather torment and manipulate his prey, convincing them to commit suicide rather than take an easy kill simply because his entire existence is to make the world a little worse. Johan Liebert from the highly praised anime Monster, released in 2004, has been hailed as one of the greatest antagonists in anime history. However, I'd like to make the case as to why he's the greatest character in any medium, whether it be movies, shows, or video games. Now, I'd like to ask the question, what makes a great character? Well, there are quite a few factors, including clear motives, distinct character traits, compelling character arc, and depth. However, one thing I've realized is that antagonists usually work differently than characters. I mean, sometimes the writer wants the audience to resonate with the villain, particularly the ones who believe they're the hero of their own story. Thanos, for example, is obviously a bad person for wanting to wipe out half the universe, but the movie dedicates a scene to Thanos that explains why he thinks what he's doing is the right thing. The writer has chosen to give this villain depth and clear motives in order for audiences to resonate for him, and whilst we may not fully back him, we definitely understand where he's coming from. However, not every villain believes they're the hero of the story, and that is definitely true for Johan. The writer's main goal for this antagonist is to strike as much fear and concern for the audience and characters in the show. Johan doesn't have a compelling character arc, rather his sole purpose is to make the world a worse place. He reminds me of the Joker from The Dark Knight. Whilst the audience may not relate to the Joker, it does make him more terrifying in my opinion. Despite The Dark Knight being one of the best thrillers of the 2000s, people often think of the Joker before anything else, which really showcases the impact of the Joker for the story. And for me, Johan encapsulates that even further. Now, Monster is a great show. It has amazing characters everywhere, it's well paced, and it discusses many problems that are relevant today and how its characters overcome them. However, for me, the one thing that makes this show stand out from other shows is its antagonist. This show has stayed in my memory mainly due to Johan Liebert. So we have an antagonist whose sole purpose is to make the world worse, and he's been through way too much trauma to convert him back to a solid citizen. So the only way to win is to kill him. We witness the protagonist of this show spending 74 episodes trying to catch this man. And my favorite aspect of his character, and why he's ultimately my favorite character ever, is because everything revolves around him. Anything bad that happens to anyone in the show is due to Johan Liebert. Manipulating innocent people for his benefit. People who tried to disrupt him would be killed by his accomplice. Children were convinced to kill each other in Kinderheim 511, all because of Johan. And for the cherry on top, if Johan was ever sent to court for all of these kills, he wouldn't be convicted of a single one because he's incredible at covering his tracks, let alone his existence. And as an audience, we feel completely helpless because Johan is consistently 3 steps ahead of everyone else, calculating every movement in order to cover his tracks and staying anonymous to the public eye. Those who are unfortunate enough to witness his heinous acts, he will simply get rid of. It's a lose-lose situation. You either never find him, or you do and someone always gets hurt. The idea of someone killing people and always getting away with it is simply terrifying. There have been many cases in real life where we never get to find out the killer of multiple murders, such as the Zodiac Killer. But at least he calls himself the Zodiac Killer. It gives us something to blame. However, to the public's eye, Johan doesn't exist. We know the Zodiac exists simply because he enjoys the fame for killing innocent people. He finds it fun giving the police potential clues as to who he is. However, someone as dangerous as Johan isn't killing for fame, recognition, or even money. He kills simply because it's all he knows. And if you do randomly run into him, he simply acts like one of us, a normal, solid citizen. In fact, he portrays himself as better than most of us. Smart, kind, handsome, and emotionally mature for his age. Now I want to talk about his skill set, how he kills and manipulates his opposition. He isn't a maniac going around killing people with guns or randomly punching someone to death. He uses his high intelligence to manipulate and strike fear into his opposition, both for his benefit but also simply because he can. One of the most disturbing things he does in the show is his interaction with his child. A bright child who has gone through pain and suffering and is abandoned by his mother. He then discovers Johan, who just so happens to go through a very similar childhood. Someone who gives him hope in finding his lost mother. However, right as he brings hope into this child, he crushes them by suggesting that his mother has abandoned him. Therefore, he no longer has a purpose and shouldn't even bother looking for her. He continues to manipulate this child, which ultimately deteriorates his purpose in life. This is why Tenma and Johan are such incredible rivals. They're like yin and yang. We have a doctor who dedicates his entire life to being the greatest neurosurgeon in the country, viewing all life as equal equal to one another and realizing just how special life can be. He consistently struggles to kill people in the show just because of his morals. Now compare Tenma to someone like Johan, who views his own life as nothing but darkness, nihilism, and death as a result of his upbringing, and then therefore views everyone else as the same. As the audience continues watching the show, we see Johan's actions get worse and worse whilst also learning about his past, which for me is some of the best storytelling in the show. 74 episodes is a long time, and it's not uncommon for a villain to feel less threatening as time goes by, either due to pacing issues or their actions not being as threatening as they were earlier in the story. However, Johan is the driving force of the story, so there aren't any issues when it comes to his impact, and he's always in the audience's mind even if he hasn't appeared in several episodes. Sometimes we won't see Johan for like 5 episodes in a row, yet he'll still be the most memorable character for those episodes, as the characters will learn more about his actions and his past. The only people he does spare are his twin sister and the man who saved his life, and even then he completely ruins their lives. But the question is, why is he the way he is? Why does he crave killing so much? Well, for that we must look into his backstory. Part of what makes him so terrifying is that he's only human. Some of the things he does makes the audience question whether he's human or not, especially when considering his complete lack of emotion. This is the product of a person who experiences nothing but pain and suffering even from a very young age. We see that his twin sister, who had to go through similar suffering, could only continue living by completely erasing her memory. Whilst we go on this search for Johan, the characters slowly learn more things about his origins. The abuse, the experimentation, Kinderheim 511. But most memorable of all, his obsession with this monster in the iconic children's book.
Munch, munch. Chomp, chomp. Gobble, gobble. Gulp.
Similarly to his sister, he has chosen to forget those memories as they were simply too traumatizing for him. The only time he feels any emotion at all is when he revisits the past. I am being fully serious when I say this, and it has never happened with any other character, but the mere mention of his name leaves me with chills. And you can see that the characters in the show are terrified of him as well, which the show uses a lot to portray how terrifying he actually is. I think the sign of a truly outstanding antagonist is when the characters are visibly and mentally terrified of him, even if he isn't on screen. There's an episode where Grimmer listens to a tape of Johan when he was a child, and the sheer horror on his face due to what he learns in that scene has never left my mind. However, most terrifying of all is that Johan isn't manipulating the characters, but the audience as well. We never seriously doubted his existence. However, that scene of the old lady threatening to shoot him for a split second made me have second thoughts. After all, no one else has ever heard of Johan. He went out of his way to erase his past. He rarely engages in physical contact at all. Someone as emotionless as him will never feel fear. So even with a gun to his head, he still feels like he's 3 steps ahead of you. And so for all those reasons, I not only consider Johan to be the most terrifying character of all time, but my favorite character ever. Thank you guys for watching. I haven't made a video on an anime since Steins Gate, and so I figured it was time to talk about another show which I consider to be one of my favorite animes ever. And speaking of anime, I'll be reviewing Solo Leveling, which ends in a week from now, so stay tuned for that video. I would love to know who you guys think is the most terrifying character of all time. For me, Heath Ledger's Joker is certainly in that conversation as well. The support of my Invincible video really has been amazing, and I'm so happy we crossed 500 subs, and I really can't thank you guys enough. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya.